Everybody, how's it going? It is me, Comic Crack, and I am here tonight with a very special guest and a very special conversation. Colin is with us today to talk about Canon issue number one, the impressive first outing of a comics magazine that we're going to talk about. Just talk about it in general and just kind of get some details about what it was like to put this sucker together and, maybe what the future plans are. So before we get into that, though, the first thing I want to say is congratulations. It's a fucking amazing job. Like,
Thank you.
I think I told you before, and I've talked about it on my stream too, that there's been this kind of dialogue has popped up every once in a while in the 10 years that I've been around on YouTube. And it never seems to come to fruition because A, it's not easy.
Yeah.
B, once you get down to the brass tacks of it and starting to put things together, there's probably a realization of like, oh shit, this is quite an outing I've started investing into. So right off the bat, congratulations, you did it. It looks really great. How do you feel about it being kind of out there now?
I feel really good
Yep.
that it got made. I was I made, I guess last Monday night is when I sort of announced it. I had mailed copies to everybody who was involved with it before. I think you were the very last person because of course you're up there in Canada, so it just took a little while longer. But I kind of wanted as many people to have it in their hands before I announced it. I don't know why it wasn't some top secret thing. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but I made a little video last Monday and put it up, just kind of showing it off for a few minutes, and that was the most nervous I've been, uh, other than like some of the chats I did in the old days on the old channel. So that was really, I'm just not really a self promoter. It's hard for
Yeah.
me to like think like, what do I say about this? That doesn't sound like I think it's better than it is. And, I just wanted to make something. I've always wanted to make some kind of comic magazine or something. And, um, thanks to guys like the Bubbles guy,
Mhm.
Strangers fanzine, so many things it showed a way to produce this sort of thing. Um, so yes, not to wander off your question, but just yeah, I'm really happy that it's out. And yeah, I mean, I'm proud of it. It's
Yeah.
not perfect, but it was great to hold in my hands. I'll just say that.
I mean, I was watching the kayfabe guys today. They had their kind of talking to the camera, and
Mhm.
Jim says one thing about kind of comics. He kind of along the lines of you're saying. He's like, you know what? That the important thing is you get something done and you get it out there. That's the
Mhm.
first hurdle, right?
Yeah.
Then you can look at it. Then you can dissect. Then you can do improvements. He's like, but honestly, the biggest thing that stops people is just getting something out there and just kind of following that process through. So yeah, of course, I mean, like with anything, there's stuff that you can polish up for sure, but the thing is you did it, right? So have
Yeah.
you ever, so just kind of going back, you've never had, how long have you had an interest to do something like this, and you've never done anything like this at all in your past, like never any sort of photocopied zines or things like that? Or no?
When I was in high school, a few friends and I kind of made like a little comic anthology, that I wrote some for, and contributed to the cost, and we tabled at a convention or two. Um, but I didn't stick with it. I mean, I couldn't draw, so unfortunately, I couldn't just make my own comics. I guess I could have; they would just look like shit. But um, but no, I've never been a zine maker. And I never really thought about it too much. I guess over the years, of course, you see these things, you think, oh, I could do something like that, but it never really occurred to me. And I would always sort of daydream about doing a real magazine, but I just
Yeah.
knew that was going to be so expensive, and that in our lifetimes we've seen magazines just collapse, right? Like there's nobody wants them anymore. So where are you going to even
Yeah.
sell the damn thing? Um so I yeah, like I said, once this sort of alternative method, this sort of in between, like the bubbles, those things, they're not quite a zine. They're bigger, but they're also not offset printing that costs thousands of dollars.
Right.
it just seemed a lot more realistic. But I mean, as far as like how long, I mean, probably since I was a teenager and discovered magazines about comics, like I've always kind
Mhm.
of had an interest. Um, so why now? I think honestly, the being involved on social media with guys like you, and then being on YouTube once again, guys like you, and just meeting
Mhm.
other people is just kind of like, okay, it felt like maybe I could actually contribute something as opposed to just being some guy in the wilderness.
Right.
Though there are people who do that. They're in the wilderness and I don't know if you've seen the comics blogger. He's on Twitter and he makes a little zine and he's kind of, getting better each issue and kind of growing each issue. And
Mhm.
that's a one man production. So, um, yeah, I like that there's these things out here, especially as it feels like, the industry's collapsing, social media is imploding, society's disintegrating. At least we
Right.
have these little small things we can kind of do to engage with a few other people. So
Well, and I think that's a big part of it. First of all, hello, AFPC. Thanks very much for
AFPC,
joining
what's
us. Good
going
to see
on?
you. I think there's a real drive for like, there's this drive from like a fan because I mean I've never done a comic in my life. I've drawn and doodled and I did band
Mhm,
posters when I was a teenager, stuff like that.
sure.
Nothing even close to anything that I would proudly show off. You know what I mean? So with not having that kind of talent and that skill set, or honestly the real um investment in that world, like there's still this urge to kind of be creative, to contribute to something that you love. And I've talked about it before, I don't remember if it was with you or not, but this idea of, I feel like canon really does fit in that fanzine kind of world, right? Because you
Mhm,
have kind of, I mean, Ryan Carey would be the exception because he's,
yeah,
written for Comics Journal, et cetera, and blogs and all sorts of things and websites. It really does sit in that kind of fanzine world. So it does scratch that itch of like contributing to the medium in a kind of different way. Again, even though it's kind of our corner of the world, it's
yeah,
still something. It's cool to have that drive.
mhm,
Um, burn your comics
yeah,
for warmth. They're for kids. Just make sure the kids aren't reading them at that time, though, when
that's
you're
right.
burning them. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's cool. So, was there a moment kind of to back to the beginning, was
Mhm.
there a moment where you went, oh fuck, what have I taken on here?
Um, I'm always very cautious about proclaiming I'm going to do anything. So I definitely sort of just hemmed and hawed about it. And, I had talked to a few people. I mean, you and I had talked about it just in messages. I had mentioned to AFPC actually that I was considering doing it. At one point, I wrote to Ryan Carey just an email out of the blue and just said, "Do you think this is a stupid idea?"
Yeah.
Um, and everybody was encouraging. So once I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do this thing for sure," yeah, that was my oh shit moment. Because I really had no idea what I was doing. I kind of figured, I could cobble something together, but I just technologically, I'm hopeless. Like I have no clue what's going on. I've been in restaurants my whole adult life. Like I haven't been doing graphic design or anything. So luckily, a friend of mine, Alex Eklund, who I just
Mhm.
know from my comic shop, actually. Um,
Oh,
I,
nice.
yeah, I've been shopping at comic shops for 30 something years, and this is the first person I've ever actually made friends with, like to where we talk outside of that area. So, at a certain point, he was kind of looking to contribute to doing something, but he didn't really
Yeah.
know. And so he just sort of jumped on and honestly did a lot more than I ever expected him to do. I'm very
Mm.
grateful for his help um, because I would have made it no matter what. But yeah, it might have just been serial killer style, me just cutting things up and photocopy. They would look like ransom notes everywhere,
Right.
because that's about the level of my technical ability. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
and not to say that would be bad, but
Yeah. Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
might have
No,
been
that would have
interesting.
that has a certain kind of charm to it for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I do like those kind of handmade objects. It's just it wasn't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
what I was looking to do myself,
Yeah.
um but yeah, so yeah, my oh shit moment was when I said, yeah, I'm gonna do this thing and then trying to figure out how am I gonna produce this thing.
Hmm.
Um and then actually when we were kind of finished, quote unquote finished, having to go and have it printed and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
because then it was going to become real and it was actually going to be in my hands, and then I'd actually have to tell people about it. So it's one thing to shoot you a message with a picture and say, hey, look at this thing. It's another thing to like ask strangers to order it from me. And
Uh-huh.
I mean, I order stuff all the time and I'm skeptical about a lot of shit, so
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, so
Was
there
it
were there were there were 3 or 4 oh shit moments probably, but
Yeah, yeah. I bet there was. Was it tough finding like, how was the finding a printer side of things? I mean, once you had Alex kind of laying stuff out for you,
yeah.
was the rest of that process kind of easy because he knew how to format everything, or
Well, he doesn't really know how to do anything either. He was
okay.
teaching himself as he went. He's a math teacher, so
Well,
he's not.
hell, man, that's impressive because you did a damn good job.
I think so too. And
Yeah.
he was really excited learning new things. And he's actually going to walk away from being a math teacher this summer. He's almost done, I
Oh,
think, because like a lot of people in this time, everybody's thinking about what they want to do with the next chapter of their lives post
yep.
pandemic. So, but he wanted to contribute to comics in some way. So, as far as finding a printer, I was recommended a place in Seattle a couple of times. I guess cartoonists use it. Um, and it was nowhere near where I live. And I just felt a little intimidated. So I actually just went with a Minuteman Press, which is just like a chain print
Okay.
shop. They're all
Mhm.
they're all local, they're all franchise. So you go in and there's the married couple who runs it. It's
Mhm.
very very literally mom and pop and a dog, in a room.
Yeah.
But and so I'm sure I paid more than I would have if I'd gone somewhere and really knew what I was doing. But I will say that I'm happy with the product for sure, and they were very helpful because our files weren't all totally correct on the formatting,
Okay.
and they worked with Alex to help get that sort of sorted out. Your stuff that you had submitted, he
Yeah.
still had the
Was probably a
original kind of.
fucking nightmare.
No. It was good, but he thought he had it perfect, and then it was like,
Yeah.
no, these are the different sides, so he had to go back and do those. So I was very happy with their service and very happy with how easy they made everything. So, um, I don't know if I'll use them again in the future or not, but I
Mhm.
don't have a negative word to say about them. That's for sure. So,
Awesome. That's
but,
great.
but yeah, it was 10 minutes from my house. That was the only, that was really like, I
Perfect.
just Googled and went and found a place. So that was pretty much it.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's good, and especially that they were willing to work with you as well. Mind the comics. Hello, G. How are you?
In the
The
comics.
one and only Gary Usher in the house. Serial killer's my level of ability, production wise.
Yeah. Gary
And then
Escher
James
has got
Douglas.
hidden
Hello.
talents though. He's not sharing.
Yeah, yeah. James Douglas. Hello. Is Stranger Zine actually done?
I
I
think
think it
so.
is, isn't it? Yeah, he's
He's
just
a
doing
publisher
publishing
now.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
and doing some incredible stuff too. The little bit that I've seen.
Yeah.
Um, so why don't you talk to us about kind of who you picked, why you picked them, how that kind of worked, what
Um,
tell us about the talents that you have associated, like the Garys of the world
okay.
and the Ryan
Uh,
Carys.
Yeah. Well, for the people who had articles and stuff in here were all people I met through social media,
Mhm.
with the exception of Alex, who I mentioned. Um,
Yep.
and originally, I had just asked him, "Do you want to write something?" And he said, "Well, I'm not really a writer or anything." I was like, "Well, join the club with everybody else. Like, it doesn't, you don't have to be a Shakespeare over here. Just if you want to
Yeah, yeah.
do something about comics, that's it. So he did a little 2-page thing, and yeah, it was just I reached out to 8 people. 6 people ended up contributing, and honestly, I was really worried I had overcommitted,
Mm,
which is why I didn't really write any articles for the. I had intended to, but then I was worried I had asked too many people to do too many things, and this thing was going
mhm.
to be 80 pages, and I had done these interviews, and I was worried they were going to be so long. So and frankly, the interviews ended up being a lot of fucking work. So,
I bet.
um, which was a nice learning curve. So it makes me feel less intimidated to do it in the future for sure.
Right. So
But
maybe actually just pause there. Maybe tell us
yeah,
about the interviews, and then we can go back to everybody
sure.
else. Um, so all three artists are artists that you knew before. I know that you knew Carl Stevens before this, that you're friends with him. Were
Yeah.
you friends with Tom and John as well too? As I look to make sure I get names right.
Yeah. No, no, John Allen, I had met a couple times just to say hello to, at a couple of these small press shows. I saw him, I met him in Columbus. His art rep is Sean Watkins, Athenium
Of course.
Comic Art. And so he had introduced me. And I was the one who was badgering Sean about John Allen, and when he went and read John Allen stuff, he loved it. And then that was my sort of in between to get to meet him. And then in Boston, he was actually on a panel with Carl Stevens. Um, so I chatted with the two of them together for a couple minutes afterwards. So I didn't know him, but at least he knew that I was a fan of his work.
Hmm.
And I had bought some art from him, you know. So yeah, I'm kind of the one guy out there waving the pom poms for him the
Hmm.
most, I think. So yeah, so I just basically sent him a message, and he responded and was willing. Tom
Okay.
Manning, I didn't know at all. Didn't know. We had interacted on Twitter once or twice because he had been tagged into me raving about a book. I think also to Sean Watkins again, and maybe Ryan Carey might have been involved with that, even though he hadn't read him. So yeah, Carl, I figured, well, he'll say yes. You know, he and I have kind
Yeah.
of chatted about it. He had encouraged me to do something too. And I figured John Allen, well, he'll either say yes or no. I won't take any offense to it if he says no. And Tom Manning was
Hmm.
just a shot in the dark. And thankfully he was willing to talk to me. You know, he's
Hmm.
actually from, you know, he's maybe the town in Washington he grew up in is maybe 30 miles from where I grew up. So just a weird bit of synchronicity that we grew up so close together, I guess. We're, you know, close to each other in age too. So, um,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, so that was just me kind of reaching out. And I thought I had overcommitted by asking three people. I sort of expected at least someone to say no, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I was very happy to have all three because I'm a fan of
Yeah.
all three. And Tom Manning is a guy that I knew nobody knew about. You know, because I would mention him to people who know a lot about comics, and they would stare blankly. You know, like
Hmm.
nobody was aware of this guy. And I really love his comics and really wanted more people to see them, and at least give them a chance. You know, I mean, maybe they'll be their cup of tea, maybe it won't, but I just thought he was a guy people should be checking out. You know,
And I think that's something also that's really good about the interviews that you did, is that level of, again, like in that world of, hey, we're going to bring exposure to people that you probably don't know about, or maybe you only know one piece of work, like with Carl. You
yep,
know what I mean? So like that Penny book is the one that I'm familiar with. I wasn't familiar with any of the other stuff, right? So
yeah,
I think that's a really good quality. So were all these Zoom interviews, were they, how did that go? And then transcribing, I bet, was a bit of a
yeah.
deal.
Yeah, I actually did them just like this.
Okay.
But I put them on YouTube on my channel private. So I'm
Yep.
the only one that has them. And then from there I could run them through a program, and of course they're a giant mess, especially for someone like me. I don't have any um stenography skills, you know. So I, you know, basically just cleaned them up the best I could. So they are heavily edited. I didn't change anyone's words or anything, but I just sort of
Mhm.
took all of the nervous noises and words we all make when we're talking. You know, these three guys, none of them were, Carl's probably been interviewed the most, I would guess. But I don't, um, I think we were all nervous, you know,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. I just try to make us sound like we actually knew what we were all talking about, and also just drill down because I'd never done this before. I had done a few video chats on the old channel, but I had never done anything like this where I'm actually interviewing someone trying to, so I just wanted I wanted to get information, but I wasn't really interested in. So where were you born? What was the first? Those are all fine. Like I like those
Yeah.
interviews, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just wanted them to be more conversational, and I kind of wanted to talk about more their place in comics, I guess. So we don't talk about the books that much, to be honest.
Mhm.
I kind of figure, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people might read these interviews and go, he doesn't ask any questions about, your what inspired you to do this book about your cat,
Yeah, yeah.
so but it just wasn't, I guess it's not the sort of thing I was necessarily interested in. And I'm happy with them. I hope other people are, they're meant to be sort of a glimpse into the way the artist thinks about themselves and their work at this moment.
Mhm.
So, um, kind of peeling back the kayfabe, as um,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
some people would put it.
Right. I think, and that was kind of part of one of my questions about him too. Like, did you end up having a bigger conversation just to kind of like, because you often hear about these kind of processes of interviews of kind of getting people comfortable and some small talk, yada yada. Did you go through some of those stereotypical questions and then get to that point and then just take out a chunk, or was that pretty much what we see on the page, what your whole conversation was?
Um, well, no, they were all longer than what
Yeah.
appears, but no, I didn't do any of that. Dip our toes in the water. I mean,
Right.
um,
Just got in there.
Yeah, Carl and I know each other, so there was a lot of just sort of bullshitting in there that I took out because nobody cares. Um, and like with Tom Manning, I told him a story about I actually bought some of his sort of teenage comics at a local comic shop back when I was a teenager. And that blew his mind that anybody had ever seen them kind of outside of his family. Um, and and I didn't know that when I stumbled upon his books. I only pieced that together later that, oh, I bought a couple
Mhm.
of these like X-Men knockoff comics when I was 15,
Right.
for $1 from the comic shop. But I didn't include any of that in the interview because I figured it was just a little inside baseball. Who gives a shit? But it made his day. At least he knew I was someone who was actually serious about it,
Yeah, yeah.
about talking to him. But no, I probably should have done that. But I felt like each person I talked to, I got better each time. So by the time I got to John Allen, it was pretty much like I had questions. I could go off of those questions if he said something. Um, but I don't know if you've had this experience where you're reading interviews and you think, ask this question, and then they don't ask it, they go to the next thing. I definitely understand that very well because I had the same reaction reading the interviews myself, going, I
Uh-huh.
could have explored that further, but it's a skill, and I think
Absolutely.
Gary Groff has done, hundreds of these things, and it's like, no wonder he's a really good interviewer. I think, for,
And
I would,
they also really stretch them out too. I mean, you're dealing with limitations, right?
yeah,
Like you were saying, this could have easily been an 80-page zine,
yeah,
instead of like 48 or 50 or whatever it is, right? Like, so
yeah,
you're kind of dealing with those limitations too. And I'm also glad that you got 3 interviews, like instead of just kind of having one interview bookended with a bunch of other stuff, which would have been
yeah,
fine. I like
yeah,
that there's just more than one interview. I like that there's a few people currently working and producing stuff. Just to kind of go back here in the
sure.
chats a little. Good evening, Gore Vidal. How are you?
Hi, Gar.
Alex's little piece on Gordo was really sweet.
I agree.
Some
It's a great strip.
praise for your interview style. All 3 are top notch.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm lucky I was asked. And then my hand scrawled nonsense. Your approach was on point. Just throw the biographical details out the window and cook. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now that you have those out of the way, like
Yeah.
those interviews out of the way, do you plan to? So I guess maybe we'll wait. We'll wait to
Okay.
talk about that to see about like future ones. So maybe just
Sure.
talk to us about working with other people. Because I know that I, for example, came to you with like, hey man, like, do you want to edit this piece? Because I mean, I'm in the same boat. I've never done anything like this
Yeah.
ever, right? Like this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So I was kind of like, I don't know how this process goes. I don't know what I should be looking for. Should I be worried about limitations? Like, how did you handle kind of sort of editing people, or did you let everybody go? Is what I'm guessing is what happened. But
I pretty much let everyone go.
yeah,
And maybe I shouldn't have. I went into this saying I'm going to do one issue, just one issue, and if I hate it, then I'm only going to do. Even if I hate it, I'm going to put out the one, and I'll say
yep,
I did it, and that's it. And so the last thing I wanted to do was make it sort of just horrible for anyone to work on it. And um, obviously, it's rough because you're asking people you like personally. You don't want to
Yeah,
offend
yeah.
people by going, oh, whatever. So, and I also knew that everyone involved, with the exception of Ryan Carey, was kind of doing this for the first time. As far as I knew, I didn't know. I mean, I know Gary Usher's been around a long time. He's done
Yep.
stuff in small press comics a long time ago. So I didn't know quite what his experience was. Brad Curry, who's another one of the guys in here, and had a great piece, great article. But I just know him from Twitter. Like, I mean,
Mm.
we've interacted, this much here and there. And maybe a couple of years ago, he had a thread about Copra, um, the
Ah,
Michel Fife comic, and I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
that thread was really smart. And I kind of put it in my mind, like, if I ever do something, maybe I'll reach out to this guy and see if he has something he wants to say. So I
Mhm.
don't know if he's been published anywhere else, but he was very supportive, very, very nice through the whole thing. So um
Awesome.
yeah, so I pretty much let people go and just kind of do what they wanted. You were like, "Hey, I want to handwrite this." I was like, "Okay," like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I mean, the
Yeah.
reactions to it have been very good.
Yeah, cool.
The few people I've heard from have really liked that your piece is different. Um,
Mhm.
and Alex was, I guess, the first person I showed it to. I had to printed out a copy after you sent it to me, and he loved it. He
Mhm.
loved that it was visually different, and also the stuff you're talking about. That DIY
Right.
aesthetic extending to, you, even the writing about it was also had a more personal touch. So
Right, right.
um, yeah, I think maybe Gary, and Ray, I said maybe just try to keep them short.
Mhm.
You had asked me a couple times, and I just basically told everyone there was no word count. I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, now I kind of know. Now I can look at the files that people sent and go, oh, okay, this is what 2,000 words equals. You know,
Right.
but at the time I had no fucking idea, and I
Yeah.
think like I said, I was only going to do one, so my thoughts basically were, if it's too big, it's too big. Like I'll either split it in two, or I'll just make one big one, and it's annoying for everyone to deal with, and that's just what I'll do.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll print 20 of them and call it good. But so, and then it ended up kind of, when I had everyone's stuff assembled, it was exactly 48 pages. And so I took that as a sign to just go, great. It's a nice even number. I'll worry
Yep.
about getting the covers and the inside matter, and that's essentially why I called it there. It wasn't, if other people had contributed, it would have been longer.
Yep.
So
Gary's saying, Colin did a great job editing my Lucy Sullivan article. So I guess there was some there.
yeah, I had told him I was going to probably trim for clarity and space, and
Okay.
I did that. Um, I really liked that article. I knew the name Lucy Sullivan. I didn't know anything about her, so that was real
Mhm.
educational for me. And
Yeah,
I think Alex did a really good job with that one, finding some great art to go with it. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and he's responsible for pretty much all the, except Brad Curry actually sent along a ton of images,
Oh,
um,
great.
which I don't know that they all got used, but he kind of just sent a bunch that he thought were applicable. But
Mhm.
but everybody else, we just sort of figured it out the best we could.
Mhm.
And once again, that's the sort of thing where if you've never done that sort of thing before, you don't know, does this get captions? Does this not get captions? Do I need to put copy? I don't know. It's all stuff that people
Oh,
who do
right.
this stuff know what to do. So we sort of made it up as we went along, and I'm sure there's inconsistencies from one article to the next and one interview to the next. I'm sure there's things we didn't catch. So um,
Yeah,
you know,
but I think those inconsistencies, give it a good feel though, right? Like,
yeah.
anything like that is gonna be even better. So
Hopefully
how
the
many Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just say, hopefully the personalities of people come out, if nothing else. Even if you don't care what they're writing about, or you don't like how they said it, at least maybe the personalities of each person kind of come out a little bit. I think they,
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
all very individual, expressions. And so, if
Totally
nothing
agree.
else, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with that. That's the biggest thing that I got. Like, this is clearly people's voices. You know what I mean? This isn't people's voices that they're altering for something. This is like the stuff that they're into, and their kind of passions to some degree, which I think translates amazingly well. How many copies did you end up printing up of this one?
I did 100
Yep.
the first go, and I've actually put in another order for it's going to end up being 65.
Nice.
Um, I put in for 50 and they sort of overcharged me. So they said, well, we can either give you money back or we can give you more copies. And I was like, yeah, fuck it, give me more copies, like
Yep.
that way, even if I'm sitting on them for the rest of my life, it's, I will probably never reprint it again. So
Yep.
let me have enough to get through a few months here. And so we'll see. But I think I'm past 50 copies sold.
Excellent.
Just past that today. Mailed some out. And then Domino Books and Floating World in Portland each ordered 10 copies for
That's awesome.
for wholesale. So yeah, that's a real thrill. I haven't gone to the Domino site or anything, but I'll definitely be screenshotting that when it happens. Just
Shit, yeah, man.
yeah, just be one of those goobers who goes and picks it. Oh, I did this, So, but I've ordered a bunch of stuff from Domino. I've shopped at Floating World.
Yep.
I'm very excited. And at least it was Austin English, and I have at least emailed a couple times. So, I knew that I wasn't surprised he saw something on social media, but I have no relation of any kind to Floating World, and I just got an email out of the blue asking about it. So
that's so great, man.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, it made my day for sure.
I mean, like you, I'd be doing the same thing, screenshot of Domino's, because I mean, I've ordered from Domino a bunch of times. I got an order there right now, actually, on its way soon. So I think it's amazing. And again, it's that getting it out there, because it's fun to do this stuff, but it's also fun to communicate and get that voice out there to share with other people. And even if there's one or two people that are excited by it, I think that's very, very cool. Ryan, hello, Ryan. Yep, very pleased to be in such illustrious company. And then a well done and attaboy from Gore Vidal. Yeah, it's incredible. So do you plan, I mean, you keep saying you're just going to do one issue. Now that you kind of, you're past, I know it's still early, it's only been a week, but do you have any plans to go further, or are you just going to take it kind of one thing at a time and we'll see how it goes and then we'll think about another one?
I'm definitely going to do a second one.
Beauty.
Yeah. Pretty much as soon as we wrapped it up, Alex and I, we're sort of talking. I met him to hand him his copies, and I just said, do you want to do this again? No pressure for me at all. He's like, no, let's do it. So I was like, okay, So if he had said no, I don't know that I would have done it again. I might have, maybe I would have done something in a different direction. Eventually maybe I would have done something kind of like the comics blogger thing, more of a little personal zine, just to try something like that out. But I think Alex and I both wanted to put the lessons learned this time around into practice, because we kind of feel, we feel like we made plenty of mistakes, and we think we can do better, essentially. And it's hard to say we'll do it more quickly, because we have wives and jobs and just life going on. So who knows? But I would love to be done with another one later in the fall, maybe. I'm going to try to go to a couple of little shows later this year, so it'd be nice to have produced something, show something to some people. But yeah, the plans are all very squishy, nothing big, but
nothing in stone. Yeah.
No, not at all. But other than the fact that we plan to do one, assuming I can still afford it, and assuming Alex can do it, he's going to be, starting a new job eventually. But I think he's down. I think it gives him something to do that's, not work, So it is fun. I mean, even when it was like homework, it was still fun, because it was working on something I wanted to do, So
yeah.
And it won't be as scary this time, Like
Yeah,
dealing with
yeah,
the
yeah.
interview process was really scary the first time. So now I feel like, okay, I can kind of do this, and you know,
I bet. Yeah. Ryan is saying, hoping you'll bring some copies to insert name in Minneapolis in August. Ah, you're doing
we'll
that
see.
again, Ryan, in August. Yeah.
No
I really should try to make the drive. It ain't that far for me, to be honest, to
shit,
get to
Terrence. If you're going,
Minneapolis.
I will do my best. I had
All right.
already
Well,
told
that
Ryan I wanted to. I was telling you before we came on that I might
yeah.
be moving. So, um, kind of once I know what's happening with that, I can decide what I can do for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
But so, but yeah, I would love to go.
Yeah, yeah.
12th, yeah,
August 12th. Good to know. Keep reminding us on social media
yeah,
there, Ryan. And then AFP says, of course, AFPC
take
says,
your
take
time.
your time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of
But I
course.
think that's a good to hear, though, that idea of you've done it now. Now let's have a look. Let's see what we can
Yeah.
do, and let's see what we can work on. Right. I think that's fantastic that you're both into it. I think it needs another issue. I mean, in my mind, I'll bug you about this offline. It needs a number of more issues, but that's just me being
Yeah.
greedy. I'll put both you guys up in the house if you need it. Sweet.
Uh,
That's awesome, Ryan.
nice.
Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about it? I mean, we got to give the shout out to Athenium comic art on the back
Yeah.
too. Like, fantastic ad on there too. And I think again, this does a really nice job of illustrating kind of the sort of world that this is nestled in to some degree, right? Like with the artists that are on the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Two of the three interviewees were Athenium artists. I mean, it wasn't by
Mhm.
design. It just, those are the two Athenium artists. Two of them that I pushed very hard for. Um, Noah Van Sciver was actually another one that I was bugging Sean about relentlessly. Like, you
Oh,
should really try to get Noah, you know? Um, and, but yeah, it's not like I would be opposed to someone writing about something mainstream, or I'm not. Obviously this area is more of our interest, these sort of off the beaten path things,
mhm.
um small press-ish kind of stuff is the stuff that our little corner of the YouTube world talks about. But I think if somebody had something personal or interesting to say, I would certainly be open to it. I don't care about like what happened in Spider-Man this month, but um, if you had some cool shit about old Spider-Man comics, I'd certainly be
Right.
willing to listen to it. I like those kind of magazines too. So,
Yeah.
um, and
There's an issue right there. There's a great idea for an issue. Just, the outsider's view of the mainstream, and everybody does articles on. Yeah.
yeah,
Sparks
I've
some
actually
ideas
had that.
there.
If there's a third issue, that might be the theme actually. So,
Right.
because I think people could probably go wild with that a little bit, but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not closed off to kind of anything at all, as long as it's something that somebody wants to talk about, I think. And
Yeah.
we had two things in this issue that were Love and Rockets related, and I liked them both, and I was glad they were both there.
Mhm.
They weren't competing with each other at all. They were different takes. They were different ways of talking about things. Um, and and I also liked having an article and an interview about the same artist. That was the only thing I planned, actually. Ryan Carey was the only one I actually asked to write about something. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because he hadn't read anything by Tom Manning, and I specifically asked him if he would do so. I had no idea what he was going to say,
Mhm.
so I was like, "Well, I hope he doesn't hate it and shit all over it,"
Right.
because
Right.
then I would have had to have written a counter argument or something. Um,
Right. Or edit him heavily, just
yeah,
really heavily edit his
uh,
article.
I wouldn't have done
No,
that,
no.
but I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
have had to write a counterpoint, because I'm not going to
Yeah.
invite Tom Manning in to talk to me and then shit all over him.
Yeah.
That's like some old school comics journal stuff. Like, I don't have the balls to do that. So, um, um, but thankfully Ryan enjoyed his work and wrote a nice
Yeah.
piece, which Tom Manning was very happy with. Also, by the way,
Cool.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, pairing up things is nicely. I would love to have uh, people write conflicting views of things. I think those kinds of things are just kind of hard to coordinate when people don't know each other at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm doing, so it's like I don't have an editorial background to fall back on, so
Yeah. Yeah.
but I would love that sort of thing. I'm definitely not opposed to publishing things that aren't positive, as long as they're constructively not positive. I
Right.
don't want a hatchet
Not
piece or
just shitting
anything,
on
but
something for the sake of shitting on it. Yeah.
yeah, or that gets personal or something like that. I'm not
Mhm.
interested in that, but I'd be fine if somebody wanted to say, hey, this, even if it's something I like, if they have something constructive to say about something, I'm down for that for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We'll see. We'll do one more, see if we enjoy it, see if I don't lose my shirt,
Right.
completely, and then go from there. But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm trying not to put too much pressure on it, but I am excited to do another one. That's for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. Um, AFPC is calling for a baker's dozen of issues. I would second that. G says he watched Sleepy's video on Canon. Looks great. Carry on. Thank you
Oh, I
very
haven't
much,
seen it
G.
yet. Okay.
Yeah, he talked about it. I watched that as well
Oh,
too.
nice. Good. I'm way behind on my YouTubing.
AFPC feels that it should be a recurring column. What happened in Spider-Man this month?
That actually
Someday.
could be very good. Yeah, that could be very good.
Yeah. And then Ryan says, glad you didn't go there. Publishing a counterpoint is why I quit a certain website a couple of years ago. I see.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah. I could see how it could get sticky, but I meant
Yeah.
more of a respectful back and forth, not you're a
Yeah.
horrible person if you like this artist or something like that.
Right. Right. That's amazing,
Well,
Colin. Like again, like really, really great job on it. I love it. Do you want to hold up your
I
card
do.
with the info there? Do you have it?
I do.
I will solo it for you here.
So there we go. Um, yep, it's just a big cartel store. Um, I apologize if they're an evil, horrible corporation. I don't know. I follow the herd with everyone else. This is what a comics blogger used, and I asked him. He said it was really easy, so I did that. Um,
Perfect.
have a thing there for international. No one has ordered it internationally. So I should also say I haven't put this. I don't even know how you'd make this official or whatever. There was a guy in England that asked about a PDF, and so I sold him a
Yeah.
PDF for $5 since I didn't have to deal with shipping or anything. And so once again, for me, the sales are really don't only offset the printing.
Yes.
And so I'm just trying to kind of take the bite out of the printing bill. But if anybody wants a PDF, they can email me at loadingthecanon@gmail.com and just do that over PayPal and be done with it, But I'm proud of the object. I mean, like you, I think I can say this for you that we're print people. We like to hold something in our
100%.
hands.
Yep.
So I don't have anything against reading things electronically. It's just not something I do personally. But
Honestly, I think it's a fantastic idea to have that option though, because I mean, especially like a bunch of the people that we know, we know some people at this point from all points of all parts of
yeah,
the world, right? So I think having that option instead of ponying up, whatever, 15, $20 to ship a
yeah,
copy. Obviously, if people want to do that, but I think it's good to have that option for people too. AFPC says that he'll take point in that in that Spider-Man article.
that would be the perfect person to do it too.
Yeah, totally would be. Does Colin have Canon in any Seattle comic shops?
No. Yeah, I haven't pushed for it at all. I actually gave a copy to the guy who's the manager of the Fantagraphics bookstore, just because we're friendly. But I didn't ask him to carry it or not. I don't even know if he remembers I gave it to him or not at this point. And I actually I put up a little a reel or a story or something on Instagram today, and a guy from my comic shop actually liked that. So he's aware of it too. But I'm not gonna.
Cool.
I'm not really gonna push it. If somebody asks me about it, I'll do it.
Right.
I mean, especially these small businesses, if they don't want stuff taking up space. I think the Fantagraphics store could probably sell a couple of them, but my local comic shop, I don't know how many people are walking in that want to get something like this. So if he
Uh-huh.
mentions it to me, I'll talk to him about it. But you know, I don't know. I'm also just a big wuss about this kind of stuff. I don't like to show up with my thing in hand and
Right.
say, please carry, like
It ain't
thank God I'm
it's a
not a
skill, man.
cartoonist. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's hard to that self-promotion piece is very
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah, for sure. I totally hear you on that one. Um, cool. Colin, thank you very much for hanging out. It was great. Thank you so much for asking me to contribute. I love it. I love
Thank
reading the
you.
magazine. I've flipped through it a bunch of times, read it from cover to cover, and I
I
can't
appreciate
wait
it.
for more. Absolutely. So, thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Make sure that if you follow us on social media, follow Colin on social media, repost that stuff. Let's get him sold out of the 165 copies
Yeah.
now. Like, let's make sure that they sell out. More incentive to do future issues. Colin, thanks so much, man. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.